Hey, what's going on? Ronin Man here. It's early morning in Bangkok. I went to sleep early last night and woke up at 5 o'clock and I feel great. I'm just kind of like looking at the sun, watching things kind of, the city come alive. And I was just thinking one of my, favorite things about living in Asia, not all parts of Asia, but this part of Asia, is that it's one of the unintended consequences, or the ultimate effect of something, right? Bangkok, I've got the place wired, so it's very cheap for me, right? And what that gives me is time. There's no city in the world where I have more time than Bangkok. I got time. I don't need to be working all the time. I can just, really, that's the thing. There's nothing to say. Just have time. Like, when you have time, you learn to use it. You eventually, like, when you first have a lot of time, you don't know what to do with it. A lot of guys just don't know what to do with time. They even afraid of having free time. Yeah, I think that's very common, actually, especially married guys, because they've never had free time. They've never had the luxury of free time, and so whenever they do have free time, they don't do anything that they thought they were going to do. Right? They might have fantasies about what they would do if they had free time, but then when they finally do have free time, they don't know what to do with it, and then naturally they're not doing things that lead to all these projects they're working on in their life, right? But to me, it really it's the same game that I see with men all over the world. As men will often watch motivational videos, right? This seems unrelated, but it's exactly the same topic. It's motivational videos, right? So it's like, get motivated, get up there, get out there. And what I kind of figured out over the years is these motivational videos, they seem great, right? It's like, what a great idea. Get motivated, and you go do something short term. It seems like, yeah, that was great, right? But what it does, it really is a bad effect, I think. Because the reason why you're not motivated is because you're doing stuff that you don't like doing, right? You're doing, to boil it down, like, to the extreme, is that you're living a shit life. So you feel like you just don't have the motivation to do anything, right? And so you have to motivate yourself. And that means, motivational videos or pharmaceuticals, obviously things like extreme coffee, nicotine. And then what it all ultimately leads to is a lot of self-blaming and kind of cycles of being motivated and not motivated and that kind of thing. The advantage of time, just overwhelming nothingness, nothing to do, and no alarm bells going off, is that ultimately, I think, you find yourself. Ultimately, you find, after your monkey mind, they talk about the monkey mind, right? That after that kind of goes through its cycles, if you're sitting in a country where you can afford just to be there without stressing out and doing stuff, what ultimately happens is you kind of go through all the things that you would have gone through. So, for example, if you have any kind of problems, right? Like if you have any kind of addictions, you're gonna go to those because you have free time, right? Then you will ultimately solve those problems. if you're a kind of guy like, well, basically like someone who would listen to this channel, like someone who does the hard work, on themselves, you're going to say, wait a second, this isn't working out. Like I ain't doing, like my life is getting worse. Because this is the thing, is when you leave, the red pill sounds great, but when you leave, like society's set up to kind of protect you in a way. Like it's to protect you to live a shit life, basically, essentially. Because as long as you like get up and go to work, the having to get up and go to work forces you not to drink too much, for example, because you're like, okay, I got to go to work, right? Otherwise I can't pay the bills. And so it gives you a kind of a structure that keeps you barely going. You can have your problems, you can, you know what I mean? You can kind of have your problems, but there's enough outside forces keeping you in line. There's police, there's your job, there's the grind of money, and there's all these things that keep you in line, and then ultimately they allow you to somehow to keep functioning, right? You can keep functioning, and so that could be called a success, right? In a way it is, because it's society has evolved into this system, right? And you could say it's bad for sure, but at the same time, like you could also say like it's amazing, like in a way, because it does allow you to keep going. Like it gives you, sometimes of peace, sometimes of happiness. It's not the system, it's not all bad. It does have a purpose, right? There's a reason why it evolved, basically. It wasn't like made by the Illuminati, in other words. It kind of came from just like, okay, how do I keep people, like bosses at jobs, how do I keep guys coming to work? How do I keep them motivated? Well, I give them this, I give them that. We make sure that they don't do that. And then over all this time, hundreds of years of industrialization, roads and laws and, societal structures and everything, clothing and, like easy care clothing that you don't need a lot of time for. It all kind of leads to you being able to do what everybody does in society. Just have a job, go to work, function, and the whole system just keeps going, And again, I want to say it's not an evil system. It really isn't. It's so fucking stupid. Everybody thinks everything's fucking evil whenever they like research anything. Like this, the idea of evil, it's from the Bible. It's like, come on. It's just the system keeps you in line, keeps you going to work so you can pay your bills. What's wrong with that? The only thing is if you like what has happened is that, as everybody knows, I don't want to go into it too much, but just it is important to recap. The reason why everybody is on this channel, the reason why I came to Asia, the reason why people are leaving the system, essentially. And people have left the system before, writers, creative people. There's been people outside the system in the past. But now it's like greater numbers of regular guys are waking up. But guys left the system, and let's say I lost my train of thought. But basically the problem is that you kind of can't live outside the system in the system, if you know what I mean. Because the prices, it's mainly about prices. If you've inherited, like say, family wealth, then yeah, you can do it. You can afford to, let's say, live in your hometown, buy a nice house, have a nice car. Kind of do everything on the outside that the other guys would do, but not do any of not be part of the system at all. like have free time all the time. But the problem with that is I've found, because I've been living outside the system basically since the 80s. And so I bumped into many things. And one of them I bumped into is in countries like Japan and like America, where costs are high, everybody's moving, everybody's part of the system. The issue with being outside the system in those countries is, yeah, you can do it. But A, you're not respected by people. B, you're not trusted. Not that it matters that much. I'm just saying it is a fact. People will not understand you, will not trust you. That's not a good thing. That's not a great thing for men. It's like everyone's kind of looking at you cockeyed, It's like, well, okay, yeah, one day is fine, but everybody all the time, your family, it starts to make you doubt yourself. Let's put it that way. It has an effect. It does have an effect. And okay, that's one aspect, but it's not that big a deal, right? You can deal with it. So then when you get off, let's say you're in that building right there, that white one on the left, and you're in a busy city like London or whatever. Everybody's going to work all the time. So every morning, people are going downstairs, getting their Starbucks, going to work, coming back. But you're one guy who just can sit in there all day because you have the luxury of time, right? You own the flat. It's all paid for. You're in your 20s and you've got a nice car. You got anything, you can order food, whatever, you can just sit there. It lends itself to debauchery or some kind of isolation. Because, okay, so let's say you come outside, you go outside, so you go downstairs, you go to Starbucks with the other guys. You just say, I'm just going to be social. I'm just going to go do what everybody's doing. That's fine. Then everybody, they come to Starbucks, then they leave, right? Everybody just grabs their car, Starbucks, and gets out of there, right? Because they're going to work. But you're not. So, more people coming in, going out, coming in, going out. You can see what this leads to is just, that's not really social, right? You're just you're in the middle of things, which is a little bit social. It is. I used to study at McDonald's in college because I liked that people moving around thing better than the library. I just thought that was, for me, I don't know how it somehow allowed me to focus better. Just being, just even though I wasn't part of it, just around me, the activity, real life going on. And then I just, okay, I'm a student, and I would focus on my book. Better than in the library. It really worked for me, but I don't know many people like that. But if I described it to you, I bet you would like it, actually, the mindset. But anyway, so ultimately you're not part of that. So then you go downstairs, you go to lunch, same thing. You're just kind of outside the system. You're kind of like, but in not in a great way, because it's like you're watching people live their lives. Because there is a certain happiness. There is a certain happiness with, let's say, being a slave or being part of the system, or, you know what I mean? Like, people in the system are not totally unhappy. They get up, go to work. They feel some kind of satisfaction. They feel some kind of, kind of feeling like, hey, I did something today. You know what I mean? I got that project done. There's a lot of things they actually get from being part of the system. They move up in their jobs, they get a raise, they get more responsibility, they move companies and learn new things, meet new people. They're in the middle of stuff. And that can't be discounted. That's good stuff for human beings. There's a lot going on there in people's lives that when you suddenly say, okay, I'm going to break away from that because it's you're calling it slavery. There's a lot of other things you're breaking away from too. All structure, all of the kind of friendships that you meet at work that you kind of don't expect. You know what I mean? Like, that give you like some kind of pleasure in a way, even though you didn't expect it, even though it's not a deep friendship, there is some kind of satisfaction with having friends at work and saying hi and chit chat and, just kind of the daily, things that you do. And then driving to work and getting your favorite coffee and, they're getting in your car and driving, and depending on where you are, right? If it's a lot of traffic, probably not as much, but even that, people, listen to audiobooks and they really enjoy the time alone. I know my brother really loves driving to work. That's his time. He can be alone. He enjoys it. And his company pays him, miles. So whenever his job moves him to a place that's too close, he loses that money, and he drives his car. He keeps it. So he keeps the car so long. He's got like 357,000 miles on his car that he actually makes a huge profit on those miles, right? So he's proud of that. So he does his thing, and he's totally happy driving to work. So, people find happiness in things, right? And so when you're at home and you're alone and you're in a city and you're trying to essentially find everything life has to offer on your own, combined with all this is beautiful. This morning is getting more beautiful. I've never done this. I've never come out here on this stairwell and watched the sunrise. This is kind of cool. It's like you can see, like it is challenging. It is challenging. It is, because what do you do? Like what do you do? And that's what people will ask. What do you do with your time, right? I think in order to really, if you really do want to be, let's say, outside the system, working on, let's say building a business online, or a nomadic job. A nomadic job is kind of in the middle because you get that structure at the same time as you can live anywhere you want, as long as the time zone's not too weird. So nomadic job is probably the best, I think, for most guys. In the sense that it allows you to have part of the system and have constant money coming in, and at the same time to adjust to places where life is slower, where you find the deadness of the peace that you find, like in a country like for me, Thailand, and that ultimately you find your place. I think ultimately the goal is that you find your place in the world, and you find your own path. And in the system, it's a totally different thing. Like I said, it's not a terrible thing. And I really think it's dangerous to say that. I understand people are frustrated with where they're at and they want to change, and that's maybe in specific circumstances, but there's pluses and minuses. It depends on your personality, right? It's like, and like coming to a place like this where you have really nobody cares what you do in Thailand. Like it's not like the States where really honestly you're always on the verge of getting arrested. Like seriously, the cops, they just don't, it's weird. Like if you live in a country, you're going to know what I'm talking about. I don't want to bag on the United States, because if you don't live in other countries, you won't be able to understand what I'm saying, like the comparison. But here in Thailand, essentially you're a guest. The cops, as long as you don't do anything, like you're not doing anything actively, they're just ignoring you. They just don't care. Like, whereas in the States, they're looking at you like, what are you doing here? Like, what is that guy doing? What is that guy doing? They're watching you. Here, they just kind of, it's weird, they just kind of ignore you. And the reason why they ignore you is because there's a lot of foreigners here spending money on vacation, not doing anything wrong, just coming here, spending money, riding elephants, going to temples, eating food, like going to Thai shows and everything. And they're not, they don't have jobs because they're on vacation. But they're helping the economy. The tourism economy is huge in Thailand. It's a massive part of Thailand's growth. Eventually it will become less important, but it has historically just been huge. So because of that, whenever you have like massive amount of money, it's the exact same thing in Vegas. You can be totally wasted, drunk off your butt, walking down the strip and just tripping all over the place and just laughing. And as long as you're not like violent, like everybody's totally fine with it, because the city is built on, visitors coming, getting a little tipsy, gambling a little bit too much money, having fun, going to shows. And so they kind of see you, even though in other cities, drunken sailor type people are not welcome. But in Vegas, actually they're welcome. They really are. I lived in Vegas. It's part of, it's like, that's kind of the target niche, You're coming in, you're fucking dropping some cash, right? Got some confidence, got some liquid confidence. You're running up there and you're fucking putting it all on black, putting it all on red, right? You're just like, woohoo. That's the tax base, or part of the important tax base. So here in Thailand, as a foreigner, you're seen as part of the, system that keeps, that has allowed Thailand to rise up and keeps people's jobs going. And, most people around here work in the tourism industry, or some aspect of it, food for tourists, you know what I mean? Like something related. All around me is hotels. Like this is all hotels. This building is all foreigners. These are all wealthy foreigners living in there. That one there is a office building just built. That's all foreign companies. This is one of the oldest hotels. Again, foreigners. That's a hotel right there. They're all hotels. Down there is a hotel. Down there. There's you can see the pool and everything. There's like 5 pools right there. This is all foreigners, and all built on tourism, foreign tourism, and more Thai tourism. Definitely, Thai tourism is becoming a thing, and that's what happens naturally. Is that in a lot of countries, foreigners come in, they kind of pioneer the tourism industry, and then as the country rises, the locals end up in all those places that were originally founded by either foreigners or people catering to foreigners. And that's the natural cycle. Eventually this won't be all foreigners. This is going to be all Thais. Maybe in another 30 years, there'll still be foreigners here, but, there'll be wealthy Thais coming here doing all the quote unquote tourist stuff. And that's the natural cycle. That's what you'll see. But anyway, so right now, at this time, in other words, you can be a foreigner, just, like people go down on my street just down there, and there's bars down there and everything, and they'll be drinking beer, like even now in the morning at 6 in the morning, 5:30, they'll be drinking beers, whatever, and or whatever time I forgot what time they start selling alcohol again. Might be 6. But anyway, there's a time they don't sell alcohol in Thailand, but once it's open up, there'll be people down there just eating breakfast and dressed sloppy because they're not going to work. They're not going anywhere. And then everybody not necessarily looks up to them, but there is a respect in a way because they realize that's, they're buying like overpriced breakfasts and buying overpriced beers in these bars. And everybody kind of respects the fact that is kind of what keeps Thailand being a money machine, is these people coming in, like guys like me who live here very, very cheap and who eat, like basically get the Thai price on things, eat, vegetables and like simple Thai foods and don't drink, don't go to like, girly bars and spend money on prostitutes. Guys like me, we're, not taking the tuk-tuk rip-off things. I mean, we're not really guys like me, we're not really contributing to this. I think we contribute something else very important, but for the tourism industry, right, we don't really contribute much. And at the same time, the way the Thais look at it is like any foreigner is a tourist. All this money's coming in every day. It's the number one tourist destination. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're looking at you as like part of the system that keeps things going. And so they'll give you, really, in a way, you get respect. Even if there's racism and all that, but once you understand the whole thing and look at it honestly, you're like, yeah, they do somehow need tourists, and they understand they need tourists. It especially happened during the coronavirus. Before the coronavirus, there was this kind of, there was a little bit of a Thai pride rising, where it was like, get rid of foreigners, we don't need them. But during coronavirus, it really changed, because I remember a couple of pictwas that went viral was there was a tuk-tuk with a picture is like, we need foreigners, come back to Thailand. It was like, you could find them online if you search. And I think it was the kind of realization is like, holy crap, like this industry is very important for Thailand. And I think there was kind of a reckoning in Thai society, an acceptance of tourists, of the importance of tourists for this time in the phase of the economy. And I generally think that was a good thing. I think it was going in a little bit nationalistic, dangerous way before. But reality hit when the money disappeared. We realized, oh shit, here's the real reason why we're getting paid, right? This happens all the time. Guys like Ja Morant in the NBA, they misunderstand where the money's coming from, who's paying them, why they're getting paid. They test the boundaries too much, and then they get burned, right? And they're like, oh, I can have the money, but there are rules, right? There are rules. And that's kind of naturally the boundaries, right? But anyway, so when I'm here, I feel very comfortable, and because most people here, like, it's all tourists, so nobody's in the system here. Like, they're not in the system. Most of my friends, they like, I can just, any day of the week, I can just like text 6 friends, 10 friends, and say, hey, what are you doing? Let's go to, a real fucking journey. I can say, hey, let's go to Little India. Let's go to Chinatown. Let's go ride. Let's go to Jim Thompson House. Let's go to that Chulalongkorn University and walk around and eat. Let's go, like something that's fairly ambitious, not just like, hey, let's meet for coffee right down here, right? Where we got to get dressed up, go out and take a series of, public transport and walk in the heat. It's because everybody's got free time. And like, somebody might say, oh, I'm not up for that today, it's too hot. But somebody will be, because there's a lot of guys here with free time. And so if I don't want to, let's say, focus on something like work-wise or trying to create something or some new business idea, I can say, okay, you know what, today I'm gonna do touristy stuff, or I'm gonna go see that thing I always wanted to see. There's an airplane graveyard that's pretty cool, or whatever. I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna finally go do that. And so you have things that you can do here, and people that will go with you. When you're back to that building, if you're in London and you just want to go, and you want to go see the cliffs of Dover with somebody, no one's going to be free on a Monday. People are fucking working, because you know what I mean. Like, you don't have 6 people you can just, hey, let's go to Dover. No, there's not going to be 6 people who are going to be, and also the price of the ticket, that influence. Like, I'd rather just, I really wanted to do this other thing with, okay, or I got to get a new, whatever, air conditioner, whatever. So I don't really want to be spending that kind of money right now, you know. So it's a combination of time, everybody's in the system, and money. Those three things, right? Here, people have time. Foreigners that are here have time. And Thais have time. Thais are always moving. The system is moving slow. It's a society that's built around the luxury of free time because Thailand is so abundant. The reason why people come here is because it's so abundant. They've never had a famine in Thailand because you can just throw some seeds on the ground randomly and come back and get some mangoes. Like this place is just like, it's just abundant. Fish, it could be the most polluted river and there's still fish everywhere. You know, like this place is amazing. Like it really is. Like it's shocking the amount of vegetation and wildlife in this country. It really is a paradise. It's, you know, I think France is also southern France has a similar, like incredible. It's totally different climate, but it has a similar, unique, globally unique, abundant country. That's why France has been always in the middle of power for so long, is because of its natural geographical location. And Thailand is just like that. It's just, you can just sleep on the roof here. I mean, it's so comfortable here. Like if you just slept on the roof, like you just sleep on any of these roofs, as long as you have let's say there's a little thing covering there for rain, you just sleep on the fucking roof. Like Thais used to sleep on the roofs all the time. I remember when I first came here, like there was whatever people do, they just go sleep on the roof. Like the roofs were full of people sleeping. Now they've started to use the roofs for tourism, but it used to be just Thais, just, you know, like uncle doesn't have a job, he goes and sleeps on the roof for a while. And then they always had the outlet of the countryside, so they just send him to Isan. You could just go there. You didn't need any money. The only thing you needed to buy in Thailand, like literally, imagine, it's impossible to imagine probably. The only money you needed in Thailand, and most people still in the countryside, enough money to buy salt, oil, vegetables, and meat. Like a place to stay was free. Clothing was basically free. You don't need jackets or anything like that. Like, it's just very fucking awesome place. Like geographically and just climate and everything. So that leads to the people being a certain way, right? And the people are relaxed here. There's a certain Thainess that is very cool, actually. And so combine that with the fact that there's an abundance because of that, the abundance in the country, which leads to the personality of the people, and then which leads to the foreigners coming, which leads to massive amounts of tourism money. It just makes the place pretty unique, right? Pretty darn unique. The sweet spot, right? And so when you're here, you have the advantage of all those things together, right? You can just kind of, you can work when you want. You can do yoga. Like I do yoga like really extremely here. And it just has huge effects on my body. I feel great. Even since I've been here 3 months, I already feel like, honestly, I had creaks and stuff and I was not feeling good physically. I looked good. You know, I was like body fat and everything was good, but the tendons and the joints and everything, oh man, I feel young, man. My back feels young and strong. I lost weight because just naturally when you do yoga, you don't eat as much because you don't want to have a big meal before you do yoga, and then you're not really hungry after a long yoga session. So I've just gotten ripped again, and at the same time, while I'm doing yoga, or while I'm doing something immensely good for my body, at the same time, I'm thinking of business ideas. Like I am. Like my mind is wandering because I'm not even in a hurry to finish yoga. Because yoga can last an hour and a half, right? For the series of 26 poses. But because I'm not in a hurry, sometimes it'll take 4.5 hours. And I'll just kind of sit there and do the poses a couple extra times. And all of a sudden I'll have an idea. Like, wow, that's a great idea, you know. And I'll get up and write it down, go back to my poses. And those ideas flow freely because of that all the things I talked about. Just the lack of worry about money, the amount of freedom, the amount of options. I'm not stuck in my house like in London where if you were wealthy and you had your own place, you're just kind of stuck in that, like nothing else to really join. You can go and just waste a bunch of money, but it'd be a consumer, but that's ultimately not satisfying, right? So you're just like, what am I going to do that's meaningful? Like here, again, if you can control yourself, again, if you have discipline and control of yourself, which I personally think coming here and testing yourself is a great way to beat that beast inside you. Let it run. Come to a place where you don't have anything else to do, and your own vices will either take you down and out of the world, or you will get your control of yourself. I personally think everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's so dangerous. You could die. Yeah, you could die. That's the whole point. Your vices could kill you, and they might. And that's just the way it is. I think that's for me, I don't want the system. I don't want the system keeping me barely alive. I want to face my demons, totally face myself, and then ultimately say, I don't want to do this, and I can make a change. No matter how hard it is, I can make a change, and I see the benefit, and then I make the change. And then that gives me the muscle of confidence, the muscle of discipline, the muscle of like optimism. Because I'm like, I beat that thing with no fucking help. I fucking did that. And then when something else comes along, when I have some new, challenge, there's that muscle. It's never easy, but there's that feeling of, hey, I fucking did it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not drinking anymore, and I don't eat sugar, and I do yoga, and I keep myself ripped. So why can't I do this other thing, right? There's no reason. So this is the, and I think, all in on this, I think that men ultimately blossom when they are in this type of environment. I really think so. I think most men, the reason why most men are frustrated is because they don't have these things I'm talking about, and they don't find themselves. They don't find their true self, and they don't develop the discipline because they've always got something to kind of keep them somewhere in line, right? Hey son, if you do that one more time, you're gonna lose your license. It's like, oh, I can't lose my license, so I'm just gonna, let's just say drinking. I'm just gonna drink at home or whatever, I'm not gonna go out anymore, and then you think of it like a terrible solution, right? In order, but the purpose is just to keep things going. So you drag yourself up every day, you know what I mean? And you never solve that thing. Whereas when you are, again, when you are faced with it and then beat it, again, you get all the benefits of beating it, and then you get all the benefits of all the free time and the free money and the lack of all the poisons in your body. And then, but more importantly, you get confidence, and you're like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And so I think, to me, the luxury of time and the cultivation of my own discipline and the acceptance of, ultimately, you need to accept that this might not sound good, but you have to accept that life is not that exciting. Like I think a lot of people in the system, that the reason why people are doing things like everybody's like taking drugs all the time and going to concerts with lights flashing, and everybody's doing things because they ultimately are bored and miserable and see life as like, real life as like boring, right? But I think what happens when you slow down is that you start to notice, the simple things, like a stray cat or fish or plants or the sound of birds or the sunrise. And you really do start to appreciate what life is. And there is an excitement, and there's an interest in basic things. I think you start to get interested in basic. That's why I'm interested in the laws of physics. And I wonder, how does that thing turn around? Why does the wind go up the cliff like that? Why does that happen? Why do buildings, one thing I've been wondering is, whenever you have in Shanghai, there was an area where there wasn't much wind. I lived there. And then they built all these tall buildings, and suddenly there was a lot of wind between them. And I've been wondering, where does that wind come from? How come that wind wasn't there before, and now that the buildings are there, there's wind? Because to me, wind comes from up there, right? It's moving around. Suddenly wind comes from buildings. I don't understand that one. But I'm interested in finding out why. Why does wind, if you go to any business district, like downtown New York, there's that wind coming through, right? Why is that, And I think you get interested in the basics of life. And ultimately, life is very interesting. But it's impossible to explain to a guy in the system, because they think you're making do. But actually, it is beautiful and interesting. Slow life and real things are very, very interesting. To me, I'll just end on this. Yeah, to me, the slow life and nature, and my own nature and human nature and physics and the basically reality is extremely interesting to me, and it's a never-ending journey. And I find that Hollywood stories and kind of made up Netflix ultimately fall flat for me. Most of them. They're true stories. I love the Narcos series, but I'm not saying any TV is evil. I'm not saying that at all. I loved The Pacific. I loved Narcos. I loved The Sopranos. So I do. There's TV shows that I did love, but ultimately most stories, the made-up stories, are not nearly as interesting as real life. But it's you need to come down. There's a lot of changes a man needs to make in order to allow, fake smells, fake sounds, fake lights taken away, boredom ensues, until finally the man starts to see things in front of him and realize, oh, what is that? And then, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? And ultimately transforms his total mindset and sees what is here around him, and has less interest in exaggerated, made up things, because they're not ultimately interesting. They're just think about it. We are it's 1 in a billion, trillion, zillion, whatever, that we even exist. I mean, we exist and then we're gone in this society, or in this world. Life is so fleeting and it's so unlikely. Ultimately, we live in this total mystery. It's just outer space up there. Just cold fucking space. Minus, I forgot how many degrees. Hundreds of degrees. And there's this air layer or whatever that somehow keeps it, allows the sun to keep it warm. And if anything changes, the magnetic poles, then that, say dome is gone, and then we're just ice cold, minus hundreds of degrees. And the center of the earth is is molten lava moving around, and there's plates, and comets can come and just destroy life out of there. It's you get less interested in politics and more interested in like in life itself and reality itself. And to me, and I really mean this, guys, I'm not kidding. Ultimately, reality is an absolute amazing drama. It is amazing. And that's the drama I want to watch. Not some fake thing written by some guy in Hollywood. It's always got an agenda. It's so limited by this one person's brain, right? This is evolution on a grand scale all around us. And it's just amazing. It is amazing. And ultimately, I'm just glad to be here. That's what I found. So I guess everybody will find something different. All right, guys. I hope that's been interesting. Yeah. Hope you guys have a great day.